Howdy folks, it's Joe the Hunting Gear Guy, and this is the GSG MP40 22. It's a 22 LR lookalike of the German MP40 that everyone loves to see on those World War II movies and that kind of thing. So it's a fun little 22 gun. Before we get too far, magazine is empty and chamber is empty as well. So let's take a closer look at this. In terms of using the GSG, there's a couple of things that are really interesting about it. One is just like how you hold it. You kind of hold it like right around this magazine wheel here. When you have the magazine inserted, it gives you something to hang on to, and it just so happens that the magazine release button is right there as well, so that's very easy to take your magazines out or put them back in. While we're also on this side, there's a button on the back here, and that's going to flip out this underfolding stock here. So we press that in, fold it to the back, hear a click, and then we fold that guy out there as well. It's got a little bit of wobble to it, which I'd imagine the originals did too, given that they didn't care about wobble as much back then. And then you've got a cheek weld of sorts on this kind of wire look-alike stock here. So you put that up there and you get a bit of a chin weld on there, and you can see there's a little bit of wobble on it. And the sights are not bad. There is a little bit of a yellow dot on the front sight here. This one came with a whole pile of front sights, which I imagine are for different height sights, or maybe they just give you lots of different replacement ones. I'm not quite sure. On the rear sight, it's actually got two different height settings. So this one here is the close range, and if you want to shoot a little bit further, especially with a 22, you can flip up that rear sight notch to give you a little bit extra height so that you're aiming a little bit higher and the bullet will go further. So that's kind of interesting. Now in terms of actually charging it up, we've got an ejection port on the right hand side and a charging handle on the left hand side, which is really cool. Charging handle, you can pull it back and then put it up into this notch and then do the old HK slap down to get it into place, or you can just let go. It locks open on an empty magazine, and all I got to do is put another magazine in there and then charge this thing back up, and it'll go forward. Now, just while we're on the outside as well, we do have a sling loop on the back here and one right up the front here. What that'll do is if you're wearing this thing as it's folded, just get that out of the way here. If you're wearing this thing as it's folded, it'll kind of sit really nicely on your hip, pointed up, and you can just pick it up if you needed to, right? So it's actually a pretty practical way of carrying a rifle. Now, in terms of these rifles in Canada, they get a barrel sleeve attachment at the forward here. Barrel sleeve? Yeah, it's a barrel sleeve because the barrel is actually quite a bit smaller. But you won't be able to attach a muzzle device to this because that's the actual barrel and that's the barrel sleeve there. So you might be able to attach some other kind of attachment on the front there, but not a suppressor without a lot of work here. This is also where the front sight will, the front sight hood will come off, and you can drift out that front sight if you wish to change it out for one of the other ones. The disassembly on this thing's a little bit funny. There's a set screw right there. You can see it kind of going in. There's a hole in there. So what we're going to do is get our Allen key, pop it in there, and then start loosening it off. Now, as we loosen it off, this lower and upper are going to want to slide apart. So I'm actually going to kind of grip onto here and hang on to them as I'm loosening this thing. You'll actually start to feel them loosen off each other. Let me just keep going here. There it goes. I'm just going to get that right out there, and you'll actually feel the upper and lower kind of coming apart of each other. And there's our lower with our trigger assembly, and there's our upper with our bolt. Now, to get the bolt out, we're going to need to get this charging handle out of here. There is a hole through there, so that if you want a little hole for an Allen key, so you can kind of stick an Allen key in there, use it for leverage to twist it out, or at least get it started. And then you can just kind of twist out that charging handle. It's just threaded into the bolt. There's our charging handle. And then we should just be able to pull this thing out the back here. Whoop. There we go. It's kind of an interesting assembly on the back here. Here's our bolt and the assembly there. You can see it's just moving the rod on the back here. It's not moving where our bolt handle would be connected, which is right there. And if we move our bolt handle, you can see it moves the bolt. So that's how we're able to use a non-reciprocating action on here This bolt can move all on its own and not move the bolt handle, and when you want to, you can move that non-reciprocating bolt handle. Now, in terms of cleaning this, I am going to clean the schmoo off the rails there, just that that black stuff that was kind of getting in there, and probably re-oil it. But where I'm really going to focus is right on the bolt face there. I want that bolt face to be nice and clean, and that's generally where your lead and carbon deposits are going to start to pick up there. So I'm going to clean that really well. And if I was to really go crazy, I might take the this bolt piece off here and start getting into that firing pin channel and that kind of thing. But I don't think it's going to be necessary unless you throw like a few thousand rounds through this thing. Now that I've got that bolt assembly out of there, I can get in here and clean it out. But it's actually like the bolt normally is right about here, and the barrel starts right there. So it's actually kind of hard to get into the barrel even with all this stuff out. So this is where you're going to want to use that 90-degree brush to get into your chamber to clean it out. This is the ticket right here. So now we can get right into that chamber area there and really clean that chamber out. As well, there's a little bit of a feed ramp in there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to catch it on camera here, but it's just that little guy right there. It's kind of got these two grooves on it. If that gets leaded up with the grease and that kind of stuff that's on the 22 bullets, you might want to just give that a quick little scrub off as well. Check your extractor groove in here. There's a little groove kind of right next to the chamber. And you might want to clean that out with a pipe cleaner or that kind of thing. Again, every few thousand rounds would probably be fine. Now on the lower, the only part you're going to have to clean is kind of up closer to the firing mechanism here. That's where we might just want to wipe off some of the grease and oil and whatnot that just comes from shooting 22 and having a well-oiled semi-automatic. When I was looking at YouTube videos on the GSG MP40, one guy had mentioned that the trigger bar on his had a big gap here. And he had like fashioned up a copper little bushing to put in there. It looks like they're fixing them from the factory now, because it looks like they're putting a rivet right there just to get rid of some of that slop. So you can see that as I'm moving this trigger, it's moving that trigger bar the whole time. So there is still quite a bit of take up here in this trigger. But after that, it's all trigger, so there's not really much slop past there. It's still not like a match trigger or anything like that, but it's not that bad. Now to reassemble, if you look in there, you see kind of those tracks there. Those are going to mate up with this flat piece here, so it's actually pretty easy to figure out what's going to go on here. Famous last words. Oh, there we go. And flat parts goes in, and that goes in there. I'm going to need to put that bolt handle on. So we're going to screw it on from the top. And then just torque it down real quick here with an Allen key. Next up, we need to mate the two surfaces. So I'm just carefully putting that dimple on the end there. It needs to go into the middle of this spring. So that guy's in there. Oop. Try that again. Dimples in. All going together, looking good, and go, looks good, looks like everything's where it's supposed to be. So now I'm just going to hang on to this thing and start moving that set screw in, and I should be able to move it up and down and not feel any movement between the upper and the lower. So I've got it reassembled just to check for function. I can check that out. The safety on the front here, you can see there, whenever you turn it 90 degrees, safety is on. So that's kind of a neat idea. This used to be the disassembly knob on the original GSG. No, not the original GSGs. On the original MP40s. So it's kind of a neat use of something they had to put in the design anyways, and they made it functional, which I kind of appreciate. It's not in a super convenient spot to use, and it doesn't have any like red markings or anything like that on there. But again, I don't think you'd want that on something that's supposed to look historically kind of accurate. Now, the magazines themselves hold 23 rounds, and one of the cool things is they've actually got a little holder up here so you can push down on that as you're loading the rounds and just kind of pull them down. I wouldn't leave like a whole bunch of space and start putting rounds in there, because then they get all jumbled in there and they make a real mess. So just leave enough room for the round that you're popping in there, and kind of load them like that. So what's this GSG 22LR good for? Well, it's a pretty good analog of the MP40. The looks are good, the weight's good. It's using a lot of plastic on it, but it's also 500-600 bucks, not whatever an MP40. I have no idea what they go for because in Canada here they'd be prohibited, and I don't have that license. But a lot is what I would imagine. Or you can get one of these. And this is non-restricted here in Canada, which means you can go out to a gravel pit and have fun with it. And I think that's where this is really, really a fun gun, because there's something about holding it at your hip and blazing away at a gravel pit, or popping it up to your shoulder. Even though like the ergos aren't fantastic to have this thing up on your shoulder, like you're not really putting your cheek on much, and the sight picture's not bad. It's just a basic blade and notch kind of a deal. It's not the best 22 to shoot, but the fun is there, and the history is there, and all that other kind of stuff is really interesting about shooting this gun. So I think this is a good second or third 22, something that you want to have for if you're going to go out to the range, or go out to the gravel pit with some friends of yours or some kids or something like that, and you want to have them shoot something that looks kind of cool and looks kind of interesting and is a lot of fun to shoot. Definitely check out that GSG MP40 22. Thanks for watching.